State was amazing.
Meeting, this is the February 14th, 2012 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. The meeting will now come to order. We will first go into executive session for several items this evening. The first being meeting minutes of January 24th, 2012. Is there a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner is moved, seconded by Commissioner Jacobson. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, carries unanimously. Before we go to the next item, Black Rock Turnpike, just a couple of housekeeping matters quickly. The first is, as you know, we have another planning meeting scheduled for this coming Tuesday evening, the 21st. At that time, we will have drafts of the changes to the regulations we talked about at our last planning meeting of January 18th. Including such things as lighting, dark sky, depressed islands, walkways, waiver of regulations, permeable surfaces, double lines, certain parking regulations, setbacks, etc. I thought for this coming meeting on Tuesday we would do the next in a series of topics we talked about, specifically signage, poles, temporary neon, internal, real estate enforcement, outdoor dining, things like that. The administrative category that we had talked about, the group of items we put into the administrative category, as well as medical offices. So we should be able, medical offices. Specifically section 12.5.2, neighborhood design district. So at that point, look for in your mail or email copies of the draft that we talked about at the last meeting in January. Which we can talk about again next Tuesday, and then we'll go into this whole new area again of signage, medical offices, and administrative topics that we brought up. Two other quick items. One is, due to somewhat of apparent changes in the National Environmental Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act, I now get notice of applications regarding cell phone towers or modifications to cell phone towers addressed to me as chairman, pass on to the commission. Specifically, the groups making changes to the towers have to notify me and some other interested parties regarding their planned undertakings and their intended compliance with the NEPA and the National Historic Preservation Act. I've turned the letters over to staff if anyone's interested in more information. One of them has to do with 651 Pequot Avenue, an internal tower at the Westport Southport Church Telecommunications Facility, as they call it. The second is a external configuration of antennas at Dolan Hall at Fairfield University. So again, if anyone's interested in this, because we are now notified of these filings, I'll turn them into staff, and if we are interested, we can only act as a commission. Any member could request of me. We put these on the agenda if we want to come up with a position on any of them. Normally they would come to us if necessary, or the ZBA if necessary, as they have in the past. This is something new, I believe, under changes in the federal statutes. So they will be with staff. Next item. '21 Black Rock Turnpike, request of Attorney Fallon to consider modifications to the Metro Center Concourse building.
Okay. You've got a couple things in your packet here. One is a larger, thicker packet that looks like this. Says Fairfield Metro Center on it, and the other is a smaller one-page sheet. And I'm going to go through a couple of highlights for you. Firstly, just by way of background, as I'm sure you know, the Metro Center project in totality was originally approved in July of '05 by this commission. On two occasions, in April of '07 and June of '08, this commission reviewed proposed changes that were proposed, and in both occasions made a finding that the changes proposed were consistent with the original approval and didn't warrant a new application. So tonight we have before us a third request, and to summarize that, I'm going to direct you first to the packet that says Fairfield Metro Center. If you go to the 11th sheet in, just to get you oriented, there's a cross-section drawing. It's the 11th sheet. It's the sheet just beyond the big spreadsheet in that packet. And if you take a look at that, I'm just going to kind of orient you to what because these plans are complicated, it's a complicated building, and I'm going to try to do this as painlessly as possible. If you look at that cross-section, if you're on that page, the lowest level says parking. That's the at-grade commuter parking level. If you went out there today and parked in the parking lot, that's the level that you would be at. One story above that is structured parking, and then one story above that is the level at which we are going to be discussing most of the changes. You'll see in the cross-section, there's a little guy on the left-hand side of the drawing. He is standing at grade, which is the lobby entrance, which is equivalent to being up on top of the bridge. If you were ramping up, if you exited the parking lot and then took a right and went up and over the bridge, that little guy there on the left is standing at lobby level, which is equal to the height of the top of the bridge. You'll see a loading dock. That is the level of the building that we're talking about, which is lobby level at grade from the bridge. I will then direct you to the smaller sheet, which looks like this, has some red dashed outlines. If you take a look at that sheet, it's looking at the building in plan view from the same perspective that you were just looking at it in cross-section. And on the left is the outline of that level that I was just referring to as currently approved. And on the right outlines the changes that are being proposed. You'll see on the left-hand drawing at that level, which is the lobby level, there was a parking area, another interior parking area there. The majority of that, if you look at the drawing on the right, which is the current proposal, is being reconfigured. The loading area that you see on the left is being reconfigured to the right-hand side of that area, and they're recapturing some square footage from what was designated originally as structured parking, and there's a total recapture of just under 15,000 square feet there of space that was originally designated as parking. Now, on the right-hand side of that drawing, you'll see two other red outlines that are the proposed footprint increase at that level, in that level only, at about 3,700 square feet. So that's, and now I'm going to direct you back to the bigger packet. You can see, if you go to the back, count 6 sheets in. Well, I'm sorry, don't do that yet. Go to the very first page of that bigger packet. You can see that the top image is what's presently approved. The bottom image is the proposal, and you can see in letters A and B is letters A, there are the two footprint bump outs. B denotes the fact that they're proposing a green roof on that bump out. C, you can see the atrium, which now projects all the way up through to the roof, is being cut off at the 5th floor. And then there are a couple of other window enhancements you'll see on the building. And then in the big picture view, if you go to the back of the...
While we're on that one, Jim, just to
Yep.
orient the commission a little bit, if you're looking at that picture that Jim is talking about...
You're looking at that picture, you're
yeah.
looking at it from the bridge southerly, so it's kind of the opposite view.
That bridge is the existing bridge that we all know is there, which appears to be elevated in the air right now. When this is constructed, you'll see where the D is, the area where the lawn and the D is, that's actually at level with the bridge. This
Correct.
building, a number of us were there at the ribbon cutting, or you've been there since. There's the portion of the parking lot that is concrete versus asphalt. This building sits on the concrete. That's actually the footing for the building. And it's elevated up. There's parking underneath the building. That's why it was lined already, because the building is put on that slab with the footings for parking and then starts to come up. It's tough to visualize, unless you're on the ground, but the building is actually up level with the bridge that sweeps in from Kings Highway.
Right.
It comes back down again.
Right.
That's why you just get
The important thing
perspective.
to note here is that there is no increase in the total square footage of this overall proposal. They're reallocating some square footage to this particular building. And if you go to the second to last page, there's kind of a bird's eye view look. That's the current, that's the proposal as it's currently approved. And if you go 6 more pages in, there's a similar bird's eye view that shows the same, you'll see the two green roofs at the lower level, that first level. Those are the 3,500 square foot change in the footprint that they're proposing for more retail space at the ground floor. So there's no increase in total square footage. Building 4, which is the tiered building in the bottom right hand of that bird's eye view, you can see it's kind of tiered down. In the previous iteration that was approved by this commission in '08, there was substantial square footage added to the concourse building and substantial square footage subtracted from building number 4, which offset those numbers. A similar proposal here on a much, much less order of magnitude than was approved in '08. But that is a brief attempt at highlighting what the differences are, and if there are questions, I'm happy to try to do that. What they are asking you to do is similar to what this commission has done twice before, is to make a finding that the changes are consistent with the original overall scope of the approval, and it doesn't require a new application in order to make these revisions.
And Jim, I think the other change is between the third and fourth sheet. Right now, the building as currently proposed has a certain number of spaces within that concourse building at grade with the driveway coming up. There's a change made where they're actually putting the loading dock there instead, and solely the loading dock, so you'll only have trucks coming in off of that bridge into the concourse building. As you can see on the fourth sheet, you can see the loading docks for the 3 vehicles, as opposed to the third sheet, which has that same opening to the building, but has a number of, a couple of handicapped and some regular spaces inside. They're proposing pulling that car parking out and sticking that across the street. And the building across the street is built for no net change in the parking, just reallocating the parking and making this more of a loading dock with usable space in this building. The parking across the street and the other building altogether. So that being said, is there any motion? Commissioner Suter has moved to approve. Is there a second? Thank you. Commissioner Wagner, any discussion? Commissioner Suter?
I went through all the plans and the summary, particularly paying attention to the parking. It looks as though they have stayed within the parking guidelines and the total square footage, and it's simply a transfer of retail space primarily from one building to another. And it seems to me that since it falls within the pre-existing approvals, that we should go ahead and approve.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion by any member of the commission? Commissioner Barretts?
Yeah, I guess, what they're really trying to do is reallocate the building and reallocate the parking. A little concerned about this application. Just, I think I'm the only commissioner that was on the original approval in 2005 that still remains. That was a long time ago. It was approved. Since then, there were two revisions, as Mr. Wentz said, which we approve administratively at this table. The same type of thing. They explain it, we approve it. That was in 2007 and 2008. Now we're being asked to do that again. I guess, in the spirit, I don't really see it. Net, they're saying, well, we've got this much square foot of building, we're just reallocating it. We got this much parking, we're reallocating it. So perhaps it does warrant it, but these are fairly major, 19,000 square feet is being pushed from one building to another. If we get a 19,000 square foot building, we analyze it, we take it apart, we ask questions, where's this, where's that, how do you park, how do you get in, how do you turn around, what's this look like, what does that look like, what are the, and here, basically, we've got a good 5-minute presentation from staff, but that's it. I understand, why that would be so. I guess, I don't know that I have issue with the reallocation of space, but I just say it's a fairly complex application to just be approving in 5 minutes. The alternative is to have them come back and quite frankly, that applicant has not appeared before our commission in 6 or 7 years. That thing has just been approved by us. there's been a lot of talk, a lot of newspaper writing, a lot of other issues, but really our commission hasn't weighed in on it. Even as I thought about the concourse building, when they talked about the opening of the station and there's no restrooms and there's no concourse building, I said, well, who weighs in on what the concourse building is or what it should have looked like? And again, that was based on our approval 6 years ago. So again, I'm in the spirit of the reallocation, I don't know that I have so much of an issue with it, but I just say it's a fairly complex application to be just moving around 19,000 square feet on a, just overview. I mean, this is more complex than most applications that we hear. And you did a great job, Mr. Wendt, don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's been some briefing on this, so that was my thought, that it's a fairly complex application.
Commissioner Wagner?
So I appreciate that, Commissioner Barrett. And so my thought was that we could possibly table this for and request that the applicant come in and not necessarily submit a new application, but at least make a presentation with explanation as to why their request for our approval without more is appropriate. And what that would do in a public hearing forum would be to provide public notice and give an opportunity for interested parties and the public to come in, hear the changes, and to comment and ask questions and to be involved in the process.
Just some administrative comment. What you might want to do tonight, if everyone, the majority feel that you need a presentation from the applicant, is first of all find a finding though tonight that no new special permit application is required, and that in fact you're going to be handling this as an amendment to the current approved permit, but are requesting that the applicant give a presentation. That would be the finding you would make tonight. Other than that, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Wagner?
So my issue with that is that I don't know the answer to that question yet, necessarily. In that, I think that the applicant coming in to make the presentation is going to make that case, right? That's their proposal, that it should be approved based as an amendment to a prior approval, and that no new application is necessary.
Just a question, what additional information would you need?
Well, I think Commissioner Barrett's highlighted a few things that we would ordinarily see in an application of this nature, in terms of, flow and plans and.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, and Seth mentioned it, is a lot of that description was handled 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, the actual building that's in front of you there with these modifications had gone through that scrutiny by this commission, by a lot of other people. So I guess the question is, if you feel this change is extensive enough where you need that kind of presentation for this adjustment, okay. But just understand, I mean, I don't know that it's, maybe fair is not the right word, but to ask them to revisit the entire project.
Well, I don't think,
No.
so what was going through my mind is not a new presentation from
Right.
soup to nuts, but to substantiate why a new presentation from soup to nuts is not necessary. And perhaps that could be accomplished by some reference or overview to historical materials. As Commissioner Barrett points out, he's the only member of the commission that was on the original panel that approved this. So to some degree, I felt like I was looking at this a little bit in a vacuum.
Sure.
And it was difficult.
Yeah, it was just a question that I had, just so we can explain
not
to the
trying to
applicant
throw
exactly
a
what he needs. Yeah, I understand.
But
Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, and what this is, again, I think this is a great idea that Commissioner Wagner has. I don't view it as another special permit application. I just say, rather than, and with all, Mr. Went did a great job, but rather than Mr. Went just present it, give the commissioners chances to ask the applicant some questions about it. I view this just as,
Yeah, I
let them
understand.
describe it to us.
Yeah.
It's not a new special permit. I mean, this current special permit was, I think the dating on it, it's about 6 years old now, it's got 4 more years to run. To say this is a new application is a whole nother thing, and that starts again. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm just saying, explain this change. We might have some input into what the change is or what it should be, especially given that there's no buildings there now. The concourse building is the first building. It's anxiously awaited by a lot of people, and I think for us to be able to at least ask a few questions might not be a bad thing.
And my last comment, don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying that you should approve it now and then just listen to them explain what they're proposing. That's not what I meant. I mean, after their presentation, you could feel you could feel two things, frankly. Your two finding is either that it does need a new permit, just based on the presentation you received from them. That's a whole another deal. Or secondly, that you just deny the application, feel it's not consistent with the original intent, and that you feel it's not necessary. So, I mean, those are
think at
two
that
findings you
point-
can
I
make.
think at that point, there are a number of options that exist. But as a threshold matter, with respect and appreciation for, Mr. Went's summary, it's a little different when the applicant comes in and makes a presentation and is arguing, persuasively. Mr. Went was trying to take an objective view of what was being, presented. So they're in a different spot. They're going to come in with materials, they're going to try and be persuasive and obtain the approval based upon the finding that that's required. But significantly, I think it also enables the public to hear that and to participate in that process if they desire, and so that we're not viewed as acting on what some might consider to be a major change, without that process.
The only comment I would make to that is, and I just leave this to the chairman, is that you should make sure any public that wants to comment, that they're just commenting on the proposed
Sure.
amendment. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there that have other issues that really, at this point, because there's no other additional changes that are proposed, is not under our jurisdiction right now. So, but as long as the chairman could couch that it is for this amended portion, I think that's helpful.
I think that's how the item would appear on the agenda. It was
Right.
simply to consider modifications to the Metro Center Concourse building, put down for public hearing, so we have an opportunity to ask questions, which we don't in executive session. And then it has to be limited to that. It's the concourse building.
Yeah.
We're not going to revisit the project and whether you need 6 versus 7 versus 4 buildings or things like that. This is a limited purpose. Commissioner Suter?
Yeah, I've just been trying to consider or come up with what unknowns might exist in this proposal that would cause us to, say, reject it. I mean, I'm just wondering what additional information or presentation would provide us that would allay unarticulated concerns. I mean, I'm still questioning whether it's really necessary.
Commissioner Jacobson?
I would appreciate a hearing. I was not on the commission when this went through, and I think it would help me to make a more informed decision.
I mean, I understand, I took a look at this. I spent quite a bit of time with staff going through this when it first came up to the agenda, how to deal with this. And, not having been on myself, it makes sense to me now, but I've had the privilege of sitting with staff going through this in detail, looking at the historic plans, and it may be that since we're basically all new members here, to have that same kind of an explanation, not necessarily a soup to nuts from traffic study to architect to building materials, but someone explaining the project. I think once you see what's been approved and how this fits in with it, it'll make a lot of sense to everyone, I think, to answer your questions, why these changes, what they really will look like, what they really will do. I think they'll give you the comfort you need before making a change like that, and I can understand why. Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest, because I agree, and again, I had the advantage of being on it, and I agree, if you're talking about square foot to square foot, parking to parking, I mean, that's all this is. But the concourse building is my concern. That's the first building to be built. It may be the only building built. It's certainly going to be the first one. So what is it? What is it going to offer? What is the square footage? What is it designed to do? What are the amenities going to be offered to the communities? Where are the bathrooms going to be? Just little things like that, just to better understand that a bit. I'm not sure we're getting that, and if this were approved and built and somehow, the public didn't get what they thought they'd be getting here, I think that would be a disservice. So I just really wanted to explain to us, maybe the same way it was explained to the chairman or the staff. That's really all I think we're looking for. I'm not looking for a new special permit, opening things up. I realize the risk of even having that on our agenda in a public hearing. People will come out with, maybe with issues to look at that have nothing to do with this change. But 19,000 square feet is a pretty big swap of square footage. We take a long time at 9,000 square foot buildings, so I think, having the opportunity to ask questions might not be a bad thing.
Commissioner Canali?
I was just going to say that if the vice chairman was on the commission at the time of the application, and he feels that his comfort would be increased by having these folks come back and talk with us, I think it's incumbent upon the rest of the commission to support him in that. So we should do that.
So perhaps the motion then will be to postpone to the next regular meeting of this commission and put on the public hearing portion of our agenda, so these commissioners can have it. Not the next meeting?
I would prefer you just simply table the matter, then we'll schedule it when.
Right.
When they're available. I think we should do it sooner.
We'll discuss that with the applicant with what we've already got in the queue to public hearing. So
That
rather
may
than
be-
making it a date certain, just simply table it. We'll communicate to them that exactly what you've said, and you're just looking to have a dialogue and an opportunity for them to make a presentation. We'll schedule that as soon as we can.
And we can put a notice in the agenda that it's anticipated that a motion will be made to take it from the table at that meeting, so the public will know that it's expected that it will come up at that meeting. Is there such a motion?
I'll move to I'll move to table, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Canelli's moved to table, seconded by Commissioner Jacobs. Is there any discussion on the motion to table this item? Hearing none, all in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item is laid on the table. Next item, 85 Mill Plain Road, request of 85 Pond Mill LLC to review of exterior sign lighting.
Okay. This is a sign we were all familiar with. The cinch sign, as you may recall, was originally proposed to be 2 sets of internally illuminated channel letters. When that sign was approved, it was approved with a condition that it not be illuminated. Of course, as you know, the sign went up and was illuminated, and there was a subsequent request for this commission to reconsider that condition, which was ultimately denied. What the applicant is seeking now is clarification. They're looking to propose 2 exterior fixtures to shine on the sign from the exterior, and are seeking clarification as to whether that's permitted pursuant to the original condition of approval. Just again, to recap, the original sign was proposed to be internally illuminated, and the condition was that it not be illuminated. Now they're proposing external illumination as per the drawing.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item? Is there a motion on the item?
I'll move to approve it, so keep things moving along.
Commissioner Barrett has moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Wagner has seconded. Any discussion?
Just ask that they fix the typo in the sign before they put it up.
Yeah, I know.
One of 5 in the application,
I know,
but,
just-
as you've noticed.
Get out my t-shirts.
Gourmet.
Gourmet doesn't have a Y in it.
Mill plane is not an airplane, like an airplane.
I assume they mean incandescent.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Jacobs.
In our original denial of the internally lit, it had to do with light and being near a residential neighborhood. So our denial was because of it being next to a residential neighborhood, and I think nothing has changed. They haven't moved the building, and it is still being lit near a residential neighborhood.
Any further discussion or other discussion by any member of the commission? Any further discussion by any member of the commission? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner? Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Item fails. One in favor, 6 opposed. Next item, new applications to recommend for public hearing, 705 Villa Avenue, special exception of coastal site plan application of Stop and Shop for construction of an existing for reconstruction of an existing gasoline station in a designed commercial district.
It's the corner of Villa Avenue and Tuxas Hill. There was a mobile station there for years. It's been closed for a couple of years. Stop and Shop is looking to reopen it solely as a gas station facility without service.
Is there a motion
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
to recommend to public hearing?
No, I'd be moved to, yeah, to.
Commissioner Kennelly has moved to recommend to public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jacobson, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor to recommend to public hearing 705 Villa Avenue, special exception and coastal site plan application of Stop and Shop for reconstruction of an existing gasoline station, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next item, 2291 through 2307 Post Road, special permit and coastal site plan application of 1 Sasco Hill LLC pertaining to a new commercial building in a designed commercial district.
This is a reapplication of the now joined properties at the corner lot and the lot that both were individually denied. The parcels have been joined together into a single permit and a single structure for another shot at it.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item to recommend to public hearing?
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question for staff. What was the date of those denials?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but
Is
this...
it more than 6 months?
Well, I would argue in this case
It's a
that
new
this is a much different application than either of the two singular applications. So I think even if it were within 6 months, and I don't know that there's really a
It's both
6-month
together.
timeline on a special permit. It's not a zone change application, but this is clearly significantly different than the previous applications.
As I understand it, they've combined the two parcels that we've
Yeah.
denied separately on repeated occasions
Correct.
to one parcel now with one building.
Correct.
So we might actually get the shared access that I asked both applicants for that they said they could never do.
Well, there's only one applicant.
We need to share access.
One applicant.
One lot.
Nothing to share.
One applicant has bought out the other, so there's no need
the
for
building
shared
share,
access.
yeah.
It's a combined parcel now.
They took you up on your suggestion that one of them buy out the other.
Okay, that's good.
So is there a motion on this to recommend?
Then I will move it to public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrett. Is there a
I'll second.
second? Commissioner Jacobs has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of recommending the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Next item, 176 through 186 Linwood Avenue, special exception application of Honda of Westport to establish an automobile service facility in an existing building in a design industrial district.
Okay, the last time this item appeared on the agenda, the commission denied recommending it to hearing because of the 6-month issue. The application has since been revised again. The original application that was denied was 33 service bays. This proposal is for 22. That was denied on September the 13th. 6 months would be March the 13th. We are not going to be scheduling a hearing on this prior to March 13th, so by the time it is heard, it will be in fact past the 6-month factor.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
Move to public hearing.
Commissioner Jacobs has moved to public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jacobson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of moving to public hearing 176 through 186 Linwood Avenue, special exception application of Honda of Westport to establish an automobile service facility in an existing building, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. One item on old business, 120 and 144 Tuller Road, subdivision application of Christopher Coco, Malgorzata, Piekarski, and Jack and Mary Lou Casper for 8 lots in an R3 zone. Public hearing was January 24th, 2012. It expires March 29th, 2012. Present Leclerc, Barrett, Jacobson, Kennelly, Wagner, Parker, and Valera. So all the regular members are on this.
And Sally's sitting
For Doug.
for Doug.
Thank you, Sally's for Doug. Commissioner Suter, you've not listened to the tapes on this, correct?
Did not, no.
Thank you. So Commissioner Parker is on for Commissioner Suter on this item. Is there a motion on this item? To approve?
To approve.
Commissioner Parker has moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Barrett has seconded.
Quick overview.
Thank you, please.
Okay, what was presented at the hearing, basically, this project involves a subdivision of approximately 5.1 acre property into 8 lots with an existing residence, which is the former Teller School, remaining to be known on what is indicated as lot number 2. Two proposed lots would have driveway off of Teller Road, and 6 would have driveways from the new proposed turnaround and road extension off of Little Brook Road. As you know, as presented, the property is located in an R3 zone. The applicant proposes also an offer of approximately, did offer approximately 1 acre parcel of land as private associated open space containing much of the existing wetlands, plus a proposed restoration wetland area that was included in the wetland permit that was granted for this. But as you know, as per our section 2.3, this subdivision proposal includes a provision for a payment of a 10% fee in lieu of dedicated open space. This amount would be basically $83,000 based on the assessed value of the property as per our assessor's office. Again, that would transpire based on how you acted on the application. There are sanitary sewers and public water available to the subdivision. This application has received, as I mentioned, the Inland Wetlands on May 5th, 2011. Now, included in the findings required to approve this or any other subdivision are requirements described in section 2.1.6 cul-de-sacs and 2.1.7 turnarounds. Just to refresh your memory, 2.1.6 basically reads in our regulations, cul-de-sacs are streets closed at one end and which will not be extended in the future. No such road shall provide sole access to more than 10 building lots, nor shall any such street provide sole access to less than 3 building lots. The other issue, our section 2.1.7 is a turnaround, temporary turnaround, and essentially that is dead-end streets which are projected into adjoining property at some future date and which would provide sole access to 1 or more building lots shall be provided at the closed end with a turnaround with a minimum radius of 40 feet. So again, if the commission finds that Little Brook Road is a cul-de-sac, as I just described in that section, the proposal would not be permitted because the proposal would create a street that would permit access to more than 10 lots. As a matter of fact, there's more than 10 lots off of this street now. It would actually bring it to 14 lots, I believe. And that's essentially the long and short of the presentation and the essential finding that you need to make on this application. The only other thing I'll mention, and it wasn't really requested by the commission, but in the past, you did receive some representations of similar applications where waivers were actually granted, even though it was determined that it was a cul-de-sac. I only mention this because it was done in the past. It's at your discretion, but under our section 4, the commission, by a 3/4 vote of all members, can vary requirements where they determine that the literal enforcement of the regulations would result in practical difficulty and unusual hardship. However, no waivers shall be granted that would have a significant adverse effect on adjacent properties or the public health and safety. So that's essentially what was presented at the hearing, and that's essentially your major findings that you need to determine as part of your action on this subdivision application.
Thank you. Before we get too far into the discussion, I would just ask if the movement is interested in adding the conditions that came up through engineering. And we have engineering conditions on this, and we have some sewer department conditions, which I'll read into the record to keep a clear record. And the first of the 12 conditions recommended by engineering were this plan has previously been reviewed inland wetland permit approval and has received approval from the agency. So it will require inland wetland permit approval. Number 2, I am, this is loud. Ma'am, you can move closer if you can't hear. We can't go any louder. It's the system we have here, I'm sorry. So if you want to, I apologize, but you're welcome to move up closer if you'd like to hear. Number 2, the first one again, the plan must be reviewed for inland wetland permit approval if it's not been. Number 2, the drainage report prepared by Barry Hammonds, PELS, revised 12/111, shows the drainage system as designed meets the department's criteria for stormwater attenuation and water quality improvements. The drainage system also meets recommendations set forth in 2004 DEP Stormwater Quality Manual for capturing and retaining the water quality volume generated from the first flush of a storm event or first inch of runoff. The post-development flow rates leaving the site for the 2-year through 100-year storm events are reduced below the pre-development flow rates. Stormwater runoff is directed through hydrodynamic separators that are designed to remove floatables such as oils, as well as remove 80% of total suspended solids. These efforts provide reduction in flow rates and improvements to stormwater quality prior to discharge into inland wetlands. 3, show plan of each outlet control structure and thickness of slab under each unit. 4, outlet control structure A should be made accessible from the berm of the detention basin for ease of maintenance. 5, stormwater drainage easements and stormwater detention easements are shown on the subdivision plan and proposed site plan sheets 2 and 3 of 11. The stormwater detention easement should be shown only over the area where stormwater detention occurs, and the drainage easement should only be placed over areas where pipes convey stormwater flows to the detention system. This should be clarified. 6, additional easements should be placed over swales and drainage inlet structures on lots 5, 6, and 7. These easements will ensure that the swales, berms, cannot be removed or filled as they are required to protect the adjacent properties from excessive runoff. They should be private drainage easements. 7, the typical road section calls for the road to be 32 feet wide. The subdivision requirement is for a 30-foot wide road with 10-foot wide grass shoulders. The shoulders should be pitched toward the road at 1/4 inch per foot slope. The property line leaders should be point to the edge of the town of right-of-way, not the areas of the grass shoulder. 8, the road cross-section requires 12 inches of bank run gravel with an additional 4 inches of processed aggregate for a total base course thickness of 16 inches. 9, please correct the pavement match detail. The surface course is Class 2 and the base course is Class 1. 10, indicate on site plan that where the cul-de-sac is proposed to be removed, concrete curbing will be installed along the new edge of the pavement. Curb should extend to the driveway at 98 Little Brook Road and catch basin in front of 97 Little Brook Road. 11, street trees are required. Coordinate with the town tree warden for the type and sizes of trees. 12, monuments required at all property lines intersecting with the town right-of-way. And then we have several conditions requested of the sewer department. In the event we approve this specifically, a permit from the sewer office needed for the sewer connection for each lot. Separate sanitary sewer plan and profile with structures must be submitted for review to the sewer department. And connections made by a licensed and bonded sewer contractor with the town of Fairfield. Would you add those conditions to your motion for approval?
Yes, please.
And
And
second-
I would like to add another condition if we...
Sure, let's put those on first, and does
Okay.
the second agree to add those
That
as
would
well?
be, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So, in a matter of housekeeping, we can take care of those. And now, any discussion, Commissioner Parker?
Yeah, on the subdivision regulations, 2.5, pedestrian easements, in areas where the proposed street system does not conform to the anticipated pattern of pedestrian circulation, particularly in the vicinity of schools and recreational areas, the Commission may require provision for 10 feet easements for the establishment of pedestrian ways. And this is certainly from the Tuller Road side of the project, within walking distance of the soccer fields on Burroughs Road, an elementary school, the middle school, and the public library. So I would like to see them put an easement through for pedestrian and bicycle passage. Is that
From the site?
From where to where?
From where to where? Just
from the subdivision, from their cul-de-sac through to Tuller Road?
So your motion is then from the termination of the cul-de-sac as drawn in the plans, a
To-
10-foot easement for pedestrian access from that termination of the cul-de-sac out to
Right.
Tuller Road?
Yes.
Is there a second on that proposed amendment?
I'll second.
Commissioner Jacobs has seconded. We should talk about the amendment first. now, since
Yeah,
have
can we
an
do
amendment
that?
Before us. So let's,
Yeah.
is there any discussion on that amendment?
Can I
Commissioner Cannella?
Well, thank you for Mr. Chairman, for reading all that information into the record regarding the potential conditions for we to approve, and to Commissioner Parker for those, for the condition related to pedestrian access. I'm not going to support this application. My view is that after looking at the plans, visiting the site in person and walking the area, it does not appear to me that you could describe Little Brook Road as anything but a cul-de-sac. There are 14, the proposal would lead to 14 units in the cul-de-sac. This violates 2.1.6. Cul-de-sacs or streets closed at one end will not be extended in the future. There's no doubt that the word future is critical here. If there was a likelihood that the opposite end of Tuller Road was going to somehow be open in the future, it makes, it's reasonable for this commission to anticipate that the word, in the future should be sustained, and therefore that this particular application should be approved. But anyone who's visited this site and understands what is actually surrounding the that area that is described as a turnaround understands that it's a park, and this town is already starving for open space. We've had some of our most pitched battles over where new park areas, where new open space will be permitted and where it will not. So the likelihood in the future that this particular roadway is going to be provided a second access point, that it won't be a cul-de-sac, seems extremely unlikely to me. Now, there's no doubt that that we have to interpret very strictly what is before us, what's written here. But I would only say that if we can't, by evidence of our own eyes and common sense, determine what the future in this case means, and whether or not it's a remotely reasonable possibility that the future will lead to an opening of this roadway, allowing additional access, then if we can't do that, there really isn't really a point for having these kinds of matters to come before us. So, I really don't think we need to get to the drainage or the other issues. It's fairly simple. 14 units, cul-de-sac. Future here is never going to be anything but what it is.
If I could just say one thing.
Mr. Wagner.
In your presentation, you said that there's no likelihood that Tuller Road would be open.
I meant to say Little Brook, obviously. Excuse me, thank you for correcting the record, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I meant to say, if I did say Tuller, I meant
Just a
Little Brook.
clarification, too, there's 14 lots now, I would bring it 14 plus
14
6.
plus the addition,
Right.
13.
Thank you. Roger. Commissioner Barrett?
I don't want to get too into the conditions. I don't plan to support this. I have a couple of reasons to deny, and if somebody persuades me they're not valid reasons, then I'll support it, because as the applicant said, we're a planning commission acting in administrative capacity. There's a lot of things that can be said, but there's only certain things we can consider, and that's our current regulations. The first issue that I have to is that I believe the street is a cul-de-sac, and this would allow too many lots on the cul-de-sac. This end was stated to be a cul-de-sac. I believe the other end is too. The applicant presented lots of data, lots of old applications, which showed a bunch of streets that were approved by commissions past where they called them temporary turnarounds. The staff did some research into the regulations, and the regulations used to be stated differently. This is the cul-de-sacs have to be closed by building lots at one end. Building lots was taken out. We don't know when. It was sometime between 1979 and 1999. So when all those things from the 50s and 60s were approved, the regulations were different. How they deliberated, what they considered, we don't know. My point is that regulations change over time. All we can consider is our regulations today, as it's worded, and words are very important. So I believe, unless somebody sways me differently, that it is a cul-de-sac and there's too many lots. So we don't have to go to drainage. I don't think we can even consider traffic issues or anything. I realize a lot was made over the parking on the street. That's caused by the baseball field, and that's going to continue. And I don't even see, that as an issue here, because the houses aren't going to make that much worse, really. So I find the main issue to be the cul-de-sac. The other issues that I asked about at the meeting, and I'll try to go quickly, one of them I did a little more thinking about. The applicant was very clear on that, was there's a huge conservation easement back there, and the question was, do they really have more than 25% more of the minimum lot coming out of what's called, in the regulations, rivers, ponds, lakes, or marsh. And really, all I saw was that there's really streams and swamps back there. The conservation easement can be considered, and those are really different bodies of water. So although the opposition's attorney pointed out that we got no calculations shown on how they achieved it, that's true, I still don't see, even if we saw calculations, how we would determine, unless somebody else could show me that they didn't meet the minimum lot area requirement on those lots, because I don't know what would have really been excluded. Again, no calculations were submitted. The other issue that I had that I don't know that any was really made up is the minimum square on the lot. The words on the minimum square are that the area of the minimum square shall be exclusive of wetlands, watercourses, conservation easements, or any other restriction other than setbacks which would prevent actual house construction within the square. On 3 of the lots, the minimum square is in the drainage easement, which to me is an other restriction. If I take again, I cut out a little 100-foot square. If I take it, I mean, there's 3 different lots where it goes in there. I mean, this first lot is only 100 feet, 0.47, not even 101 feet wide, and there's a drainage easement there. It's obvious that it's into that easement, and to me, that's another restriction. If it's not, then I'll withdraw that objection, but to me, it doesn't meet that one either. So those are the 2 technical reasons I have for not supporting this application.
Commissioner Wagner and then Commissioner Jacobs.
I appreciate the comments. Commissioner Barrett's did a good job of getting some of the technical defects here, and I won't be supporting this application either. The issue of the parking on the Little Brook Road at the cul-de-sac near the park, I believe is relevant because that is why our regulations provide for a maximum number of homes to be served by such a roadway. And the issues that they're facing now are due in part because, for whatever reasons, this roadway has the number of units it does now, and it's also being used for access there. I really do believe that the cul-de-sac issue is the only issue that we need to decide and results in the rejection of this application, although there are clearly many others as well. But I did want to note, though, for the record, that evidence that we received through the public hearing does support the regulations and the reason why they are in place the way they are, and why it's important that we view this in the manner in which we are viewing it. And it appears that others on the commission feel the same way.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobs?
I am not one who sits and reads court decisions much, but I've been reading some. And one thing that keeps coming up in the heading notes is it keeps saying, in numerous different ones, the court must use common sense in construing a regulation and assume a rational and reasonable result intended by the local legislative body. I can take Mr. Barrett's comment about the square and take it into that. We don't have to interpret, because we sat on it when we wrote it. And when we were writing the minimum square regulations, I kept saying, if you can't build on it, it can't be used as a square. So that was what we were saying, and we sat on it when it was being written. So we know what that was being said. Taking that again to the cul-de-sac. I see this also, when we made rules on cul-de-sacs, it was to limit the number of houses. If we keep saying that they can keep putting more and more cul-de-sacs, this road could have 7, 8, 10, 15 cul-de-sacs off of it, which is not what the intent was when the cul-de-sac rule was being made. It was made to limit the number of houses, and I would hope that we would continue to go that and hold that, that in our regulations. There was also something that came up when they were talking about runoff. They dealt with the roads, and they left out 10 feet. The initial 10 feet, which is on an uphill stretch, has no nothing that they have done to deal with runoff that will run right into the houses in the neighborhood. They said they had a catch basin, but it was 10 feet into their new subdivision. So the 10 feet to the road will be running directly into the houses. Now, I would also assume that if it was 12 feet, it's not going to automatically run to the side because that road's going to be pitched towards the existing houses. So it's going to be more than 10 feet. You're going to have a large amount of road running right down towards the houses where they don't need that extra water. This is an area that is not the best in draining to begin with, and this can really aggravate the situation. I was supporting the Ms. Parker's condition only in case this was to pass. I will not be supporting the actual application.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Commissioner Parker?
Yeah, again, my condition was if it did pass.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacobson?
For all of the reasons that my fellow commissioners have expressed, I will not be supporting this application. I did visit the site twice, and it's a beautiful street, and I used to park there all the time when my nephews play ball in the park. And it is crowded. I mean, in addition to all the other conditions, I'm very concerned about safety and the fact that there's only one access for all of those houses. I mean, I went and counted up the houses, and it's just, there's a reason for the regulations, and I think we should follow them. Thank you.
Thank you. My thoughts are similar to the fellow commissioners, and I look at the rule in particular on cul-de-sacs, and it talks about streets closed at one end. And as a skier, I look at ski areas, and I can take a ski area with 10 slopes and turn it into a 20-slope ski area very easily, as many places do by having Main Street upper and then lower Main Street. And Deer Run East and Deer Run West. Every ski area does it to make it sound like they got more slopes. Right. Just because we have a street, clearly this entire area is, whether it's Little Brook or Marion Road coming down, that is one street in my mind. That's the purpose of the subdivision regulations. Otherwise, you could take a scenario where I could take a nice piece of land here in Fairfield and put in a street on it, a cul-de-sac, but with 9 houses to make it legal. But between each of those 9 houses, I could come off with another cul-de-sac with 9 houses on them. And if you do the math, you've just created an 81-house subdivision, not violating our cul-de-sac. So what's the point of the cul-de-sac regulation? That is to regulate traffic in streets that only have one means of ingress and egress. And our regulations clearly treat, they look at the street, I think, should be defined as that roadway which extends from a main thoroughfare, which obviously has 2 means of ingress and egress, no matter what you call them. We would have developers naming streets north and south, or top and bottom, just to avoid the cul-de-sac rule. And that's my concern with this is, we have a street, the Little Brook is a cul-de-sac, and when it's looked at either just Little Brook or Little Brook with Marion, we have even a bigger cul-de-sac. And our rule is clear on cul-de-sacs that this just is not allowed, regardless of the square, which I agree that's another significant issue as well. So at that point, I don't believe there was a second to your proposed amendment.
Oh, it was.
Was there a second? I'm sorry, there was. So in that case, we have to take a vote first on Commissioner Parker's amendment. Is all in favor of her, would you, again, just restate your amendment, please?
Well, just that we would have
withdraw
a
it, too.
Unless you want to withdraw your
pedestrian.
amendment, you can either withdraw.
I'll withdraw it.
right.
Thank you.
And the second consents to withdraw of that amendment?
Absolutely.
So now we have the main item with the conditions introduced by staff. Is there any further discussion on those?
What exactly is the motion? Is it to approve?
The
with
motion was
conditions?
to approve with those conditions as put, as recommended by the Conservation Department and the Sewer Department. So it's a motion to approve. A vote in the affirmative is a vote to approve. Again, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Abstentions? Item fails unanimously. None in favor, 7 opposed. No abstentions. We have one more item before we go to public hearing, and that is a compliance. 2315 Black Rock Turnpike. Application of Attorney Fitzpatrick on behalf of Duchess of Black Rock Turnpike for a facade modification in a design commercial district. Oh, wait, I'll get the... Okay, the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I didn't hear
Commissioner
that one. You approved
Commissioner
it?
Suter, second. Mr. Wentz?
This is similar to an application that you folks denied on December 10th. The modification that was made addresses the concern that was raised by the commission that the proposed sign exceeded the first floor, so they brought the sign down to be level with where the sign presently exists on the main.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Wagner?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the applicants coming back to us with a revision. The sign is presently in this configuration. I think that the building is in much need of the rehab. I think that this does a nice job of subordinating the sign a little bit into the first floor area. And I support this application and urge the commission to approve.
Thank you. Any further discussion by any member of the commission? Commissioner Jacobs, I'm sorry. See you there.
The way I see this, the sign is still above the height of the first floor, therefore it is still a second-story sign, therefore I would not support it.
Commissioner Wagner. I'm sorry, Commissioner Suter. Thank you.
I agree with Attorney Fitzpatrick's statement that the Dutchess building contains only one story and therefore cannot be classified as a multiple-story building, and I think that the sign falls within our regulations and requirements and should be approved.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion by any member of the commission? Hearing none, all in favor of compliance application 2315 Black Rock Turnpike, application of Attorney Fitzpatrick on behalf of Dutchess at Black Rock Turnpike for facade modification in a design commercial district, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
A nay is Commissioners Jacobson, Jacobs, and Kennelly. Abstentions?
Was that 4-3 or 5-2?
4-3.
4-3.
Okay.
Yeah, the opposed were Jacobson, Jacobs, and Kennelly.
Excuse
Ms.
me? I didn't get who made the motion and who seconded, because they
Commissioner
were
Wagner made the
exiting.
motion, and it was seconded by Commissioner Suter.
Thank you.
And the item is approved, 4-3-0. There being nothing else on our executive session agenda, we will stand in a brief recess and then reconvene for public hearings. 2 items for 85 Mill Plain Road and 1 for 930 King Highway East.
Full table tonight.
Because I see that.
Back online? Yes? Okay. We're back again. Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission, February 14, 2012. We are now going to begin the public hearing portion of our meeting. We have 3 items on public hearing tonight. The first one is 85 Mill Plain Road, application of 85 Pond Mill LLC to establish a restaurant use with request for reduced parking in a design industrial district. Mr. Ekman?
John Ekman, 85 Mill Plain Road, LLC, 501 Kings Highway East, Fairfield. Before I begin, I just noticed that the name plates for Commissioner Kelly and Wagner mixed up.
That's it.
My mother always wanted to be.
You're welcome. So this application is for a restaurant that, just going to walk around here for 1 minute, is in the front section of the complex. It's the old boiler house. There was actually a 3,600-foot restaurant approved a couple years ago, and for whatever reason, the transaction didn't happen. And so we've been entertaining restaurateurs over time, and even though the economy isn't the best right now, we have somebody interested, another local operator, who has essentially the same idea of casual dining and almost mirrors the size format as far as the proportions go. The size of the restaurant overall is just a little bit larger. So it goes from 3,600 to proposed 4,288. And the patron area, which drives the parking, runs from 1,800, which had been approved previously, to just over 2,000 feet. So when we came before with the initial restaurant, we asked for a reduction of ratio from 1 per 45 square feet to 1 per 60 square feet, excuse me. And the commission saw fit to approve that. And for this expansion now, we're just asking that you approve the same ratio that you approved previously at 1 per 60.
Hearing none. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Also hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this item. Thank you. Next item of public hearing this evening, 85 Mill Plain Road, application of 85 Ton Mill LLC for expansion of gym use with request for reduced parking in a design industrial district. Mr. Ekman?
Ekman again, 85 Mill Plain Road, LLC. This particular use is an indoor recreation use. It's an extension of the gym. It's an operation called parkour. I don't know if anybody's heard about that, but it's in vogue now. It's a very active format. It'll be linked to the gym, and so there'll be transition between gym people and the venue, as well as happens throughout the site. And for this application, we are asking that you continue again the 3 per 1,000 ratio that kind of established up to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Ekman. I have one question. Looking at the submittal you have on the parking, I compared it the two together. Is my sheet I received on the NOLA restaurant application has some handwriting on it? I don't know if everyone else does as well, with calculations. Do you folks have handwriting on your sheet?
I didn't see it. No. You got the special copy.
My sheet I have it has 688 square feet next to the proposed additional restaurant area, which is the same number you have on both sheets for parking. And then it equals 12 spaces, which is the same on both sheets. If you look at the restaurant, it then lists 28 spaces left. However, if I go to the paperwork on the gymnastics expansion, next to proposed restaurant, it lists 34 spaces left. And then one of your sheets that was turned in with the package, someone wrote, instead of 688 square feet, they wrote 705. And then next to 28, they wrote 18 and circled it. So that may just be my copy, that one of the ones that was submitted. I don't know what that means on one of the copies we were given, but more importantly, the numbers don't seem to match between the two of them, between the 28 and then the 34.
Yeah, let's see if I can see what happens.
You see it on the sheet what I'm talking about? You want me to-
Very good catch.
And I'm not sure what the handwriting is, if it's just someone's notes that we didn't mean to get, we shouldn't have gotten. I can show you if you want to look over here, Wayne.
Oh, you know what, the difference is that on the first application, there was a spinning operation of 2,000 feet, and that spinning operation was actually going to be in a portion of where the parkour was. So that's been removed from the second tally sheet, and those 6 spaces are added down below.
And that's how you get to 34, you go
Yes,
from
correct.
28 to
Yep.
34. Okay, I see what you're saying. The under approved use is the spinning operation.
That's been
2,000
deleted,
square
and
feet.
you're right, I should have made a note that that was taken out so that would have been clear.
And the other notes, the 705 and the 18. those are
That's
just-
not me, I don't know
that's
what
not
that
you?
is.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Is there any question by any member of the other member of the commission? Commissioner Jacobs?
Having really nothing to do with this, but just curiosity, what are they going to do there, and what is it?
It's called parkour, and it's a form of exercise where you run up ramps and you do crazy things. And it's in vogue right now. In fact, maybe it was 3 weeks ago on the cover of the Connecticut Post, there was a picture of somebody flipping over a picnic bench on the beach. So he ran up, used it as a platform, somersaulted over, and landed on the sand. That's, in effect, a parkour move.
Okay.
I think Mr. Devanchik does that.
I'm ready.
You know where to find it.
Any further discussion by any member of the commission? Hearing none, is there any comment by any member of the public? Also
Also hearing none. Thank you. This is close to the hearing.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda this evening for public hearing is 930 Kings Highway East, special exception application of Greg Miller for additions and renovations of an existing auto dealership in a designed commercial district.
Down on the other side.
We talked about that Tuesday.
Here. Good evening. I'm Greg Miller from Paul Miller Nissan LLC and formerly of Ted Miller Buick Incorporated. We've submitted this application for special exception because we wish to reconfigure and renovate the front showroom portion of our facility and modernize the entire inside of the facility. The old rounded showroom that currently exists, the old Buick showroom, is to be removed and squared off with the existing Ford showroom, creating one seamless front. We're doing this because Nissan has added lots of products that we need to accommodate. They also have a standardized facility program that we need to adhere to bring us up to standards with all the other dealers in the country. It's part of their retail design initiative, and like I said, it is a standardization for all Nissan dealers. In addition to that, we would also like to relocate our current Nissan ground sign from its current location to the front side of the building where the Ford sign used to be located. We had two ground signs. We now currently have one on the far side of the building, and we would like to relocate it to the front entrance of the building where the Ford sign used to be located.
Site plan itself. You don't have smaller versions of the plans for us, do you? Just the big sheets? Can you just show us on this drawing the locations, the location where the sign that you're proposing to be relocated currently is?
Relocated right here where the old Ford ground sign used to be. This thing would be removed and not have a sign. So we just have one, since this is the main entrance to the facility.
Is that sign in compliance with their regulations?
Yes. We had two older signs there, Nissan and Ford at the time, that were of the old regulation, and when they changed the signs to the new look, they were required to be brought down within regulation. But I'd like to turn it over to Phil Tiso of Rose Tiso and any additional information on the renovation.
And on the signs, are you able to address the setback for the signs? Is it within the correct setback as required under our current regs?
For the record, Phil Tiso.
Thank you, Mr.
From
Tiso.
Rose Tiso. The site plan I submitted, I inadvertently left off the setbacks from the setback to the existing sign and the setback to the proposed sign. I've added those to another set of plans, and if, with your permission, I could pass those out.
Thank you. Yeah, we can pass it on. Thank you. And is this new sign, the proposed new sign within the setback as required?
It does not, the existing sign currently does not meet the setback requirement. It is 22.6 feet from the street line. The front setback is 25 feet. And it's being relocated to the former Ford sign location, which puts it 9.7 feet from the street line, but in the same footing base as the former Ford sign.
The footing base is still there from the old sign?
It was removed, but it's in the same. There's a piece of concrete that we measured. The electrical box where the sign was, we measured that position, and that's what we're showing on the site plan.
So
It'll need a new footing, but
what would the burden be to make the sign, the installation of the new sign compliant?
with the setback,
It would probably interfere with customer parking.
I'd probably lose 2 customer parking spaces in front of the facility.
And what about the electrical and construction?
Well, I mean, I would guess that the conduits would have to be extended.
So building it where the footing is now, you're taking advantage of existing conduit, existing electrical.
Correct.
And keeping the customer parking that is required.
I should briefly mention that we received Zoning Board of Appeals approval for a very small extension of the nonconformity about 2 weeks ago. And we're removing this round portion of the building, which was completely encroaching over the front setback. And the front line of the building is being extended in a straight line, as is illustrated in this rendering. And that straight line results in a 2 square foot additional nonconformity over the setback, but we did receive ZBA approval for that. It's just the way the building is currently positioned. You know, if you extend the straight line, it just creates a small additional nonconformity, but eliminates a much, much larger one.
To understand, you know, I actually am kind of a fan of the old curved showroom. Like, it's a nice
So is my
throwback,
father.
you know, I run past there, I like it. But to understand, essentially you're doing this because Nissan, as a matter of branding, needs their dealerships to look alike. They want them to look of a similar type. That's
Correct.
the idea, basically? Yeah.
Due to the economy in the car business,
Right.
we've been holding out as long as humanly possible.
Sure.
And we've reached the end of that holdout.
Because essentially they have kind of a standard that you have
Correct.
to
And
keep
they
coming and getting
said,
there.
in order to approve a new facility, they will not permit a rounded showroom.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, I
pretty
know,
neat.
I
I'm
wish it
just saying,
still had
I
the
like
old
it.
Miller Buick
No,
big
no,
thing on it.
It's a neat thing.
That was in the
Okay.
60s, but.
But I understand.
Your sign that you're talking about, this sign that you want to put at the old location, which does not comply with our setback, is not in the color drawing you have, is it?
It is not in this rendering. This rendering, I believe, was produced by
It was
Nissan.
produced by Nissan, and it's only of the front corner. It's not showing the other side of the building where it is.
This is the corner where you're proposing to put it, though,
Correct,
by those 2
correct,
people
yeah.
walking.
It's going to be right on the corner of the concrete, right in front of that window
What
right
is
there,
there
right?
that's going to be proposed to be relocated?
Yeah, they
Right there.
right in here.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just something about the sign and setback. At the time this building was built, and the time the Ford sign was ultimately approved, the setback standard in this district was 10 feet. In 1989, it was changed to 25 feet, so which created some of the nonconformities. So, but the previous Ford sign was approximately 10 feet from the street. They're proposing 9.7, but that was the standard up until 1989.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Which, I guess for the record, we'd certainly move it to 10 feet if that made it,
Well, it doesn't really,
yeah, it's not a huge difference.
that's not that it's not a huge difference. It's 10 feet, that's just immaterial at this point, right? Because that was the old.
Right.
Can I ask you a question about lighting? You have a lighting, well, are you planning on changing the parking lot lighting at all?
We're talking about that today. We are going to start an evaluation of relamping and figuring out way better than it is right now.
Yeah, because driving there tonight, I paused at the corner to look, and it reminds me of a correctional facility, the way you have your lights on your building, lighting up the entire
It does.
neighborhood, basically.
It does, and we are absolutely looking at that. That's been a pet peeve of mine for years, and now's the perfect time to undergo that.
'Cause I noticed there are none of those large light-the-sky fixtures on the new building as you have drawn. Right?
No, those were in the 80s.
I
Those
know,
were
I know.
what was permissible, and yeah, it will be changed. We haven't gotten to that point yet because again, we've been forced to time constraints to push this along further or faster than we had ever expected. So that will be done. I hate the lights that are there.
Is this your only sign option? The reason I ask this is because that setback is going to, I'm just going to tell you now, it's going to, there's going to be some problems. And the massing, I mean, I don't know what you can do, but the massing of that, the big rectangle like that, when it's so close to the street, could really be a problem. There isn't any, I mean, again, I don't want to add an undue burden or cost. There isn't something that's in any way kind of a lighter thing, something where it's just the Nissan symbol cut out or something like that, because that big rectangular massing so close to the street, I can see that's going to be, it might be a problem for some.
That sign is already there now.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yes, no, that sign is there.
It's over.
It's just on one
No,
side.
it's on the other side.
Other side where it's going. All right.
That
So,
sign you see there, it's here now,
But it's
on this
going-
corner.
Yeah, that slot. Yeah.
Now, mind you, it's also, correct me if I'm wrong,
22.6.
it's gonna move from 22.6 feet
To
from the
9.7.
street to 9.7 feet from the street.
that is correct, right?
Right, that's correct.
And get rid of
Well, I guess
the
all I'm saying is this has got to be, what we're seeing is that's the design, I mean, that's like you get from corporate or something?
Well, what was there before in the past was something that was much larger.
Yeah.
And then again, when they went in for the new style sign,
Sure.
that was the maximum size that was allowable at the time of that. So instead of ordering a new sign, we had just thought of relocating.
Is that your only option?
There, of course, are smaller signs, yes. I don't know how they work because we've never looked at other ones. We just thought of moving that one. We never looked at another option.
There's always the other option of putting it in the large parking lot to the left where the cars are and setting it back.
But
Parking
you're saying
around
you
it.
lose 2 customer parking spots.
Well,
Come on.
Right?
But I'm sorry, I didn't.
Did you say if you move it, if you met the setback, you said that you'd lose 2 customer spots, am I wrong?
Yeah, that's parking directly in front of the showroom, which is,
So then can you see it because the building sticks out? I mean,
you would only see it from one direction.
well, ask them. Can they do
If
that?
you- Where's your pointer?
Yeah. Ask them.
How do you do this?
But not in your eyes.
Just don't put it in my eye.
Can you move the sign, let's say, over that way, have the setback, and you won't lose 2 parking spaces?
Over in there, I believe that there are some large trees that are there as required, and that, at that part, there is one large tree. That would probably put the sign in the middle of inventory parking.
And it might be blocked by the illegal used car signs that you have.
Which ones? There's
The
none
feather
there.
ones, the ones that stick up way in,
There's no signs there right now.
they were last week?
There, occasionally, on Saturdays, we do put them out for a sale, and then we take them down.
I have a question. I somehow recall seeing cars on display outside
The showroom.
the showroom. Where, I'm having trouble locating it on the plan and in the photograph. Where are the display cars now?
They are currently, can you see this one?
Yeah.
All in front of the showroom.
Yeah,
Here, I mean, that's display area. It's always been.
okay, and it will
Since-
continue to
It
be?
will continue, but in much less numbers. There will probably be 3 or 4 feature cars rather than an inventory of 8 or 9
Okay,
that we kind of pack in there now. It'll be more of a feature.
feature,
Yeah, behind the fence, behind the fencing that's there.
there.
So, this may be a little bit out of turn, but, confronted with this very large sign being proposed 9.7 feet from the street, would you rather us talk to you about the possibility of your ordering a smaller sign to go where you have it proposed, or relocating this bigger sign to some other conforming place on the site plan?
I don't know how to answer that because I never really thought about it. But I guess we would be open for options, but these signs are not cheap
No.
by any stretch. And one that we already have that was approved, that's kind of the way we wanted to go. But if it doesn't work, then of course we'll listen and come up with plan B if need be. Would rather not, but if we have to, we will.
Do you have the street address displayed anywhere?
No. supposed to be.
I like it.
Because it's actually
It is
several
under
parcels, so it's
Yeah.
one building on 930 and 970, so.
So it would be a dash, yeah.
Well, you
It
have.
is a little more complicated with this site, but
You feel the sign where it is now is totally ineffective? I mean, I would think it
For
would
the-
grab all the traffic coming the other direction.
You got a non-conformity right now, right? So your other option is to leave it right where it is and not ask us for permission to do anything.
True, yeah, we could do that. But in the grand scheme of the site and the renovation, it kind of then just is there. It's not serving a purpose the way it was designed. It's just there because was there. You know, it's not making the site more presentable. It's not identifying the site properly. Now, don't forget, we've had, I think, double the number of the signs approved for that building, and we are cutting them in half because we're now a single franchise rather than a dual franchise. So it was permitted, one sign on one building, 4, Nissan. Those are all coming down for a much smaller sign footprint.
Mr. Barrett?
I mean, can you just talk about what signage will you have on your building? Is that everything we're seeing there? What is the rest of the sign plan? I know it's probably taken away from your presentation, but since we're on signs, like, what are you gonna have? Just those 3 signs there?
That illustration sums it up.
Okay.
With regard to answering your question.
Okay.
The name sign and the word mark, and the Nissan sign, their word mark, they call it, which is just the brand sign over the door. And then service and express service over the garage doors, the drive-through doors, and the ground sign, and that's pretty much it.
And we interrupted your presentation. I don't know if you had more or how you...
It's very simple, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's,
Make it the curve, make it straight.
I can add that
Clarity with the sign.
with regard to the size of the signs, they're conforming. They're not over the
The
over
building
limit.
signs on the building.
The building signs, correct.
Are you doing anything with your streetscaping in connection with this renovation as well?
Absolutely.
And what are you doing, sidewalks, curb strips, things like that by this building?
We haven't addressed that yet, have we?
No.
As far as finalizing that, due to, again, we weren't expecting to have to do this fast, but Nissan, again, put a timeline on things and kind of pushed up the project by 6 months. So we're under the gun. We're trying to do the parts that are needed as they go in and then backfill the stuff. So we may be a little premature on some of those things. But, yeah, oh yeah, I get off the highway every day and can't stand the way it looks, so it will be done. New landscaping, fencing, curbs, everything.
When you say fencing, what do you...
Well, there's that low fencing in front of show them the barrier from the sidewalk to the inventory.
Okay.
Some of that is, got 20-something years old, so it's time.
It's a wood guide rail along the front of the building. Wood timber guide rail.
Yeah, that's what's currently there, yes.
Have you... Is there any comment by any member of the public? Also hearing and seeing none. We will close the public hearing on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you. And having no further business on the agenda, the meeting will now stand in adjournment. Thank you.